With the older kids, their involvement in ODP, when and if they choose to, is another part of those who choose the elite player development pathway. This is something for them to be involved in. And then in my developmental scheme, my soccer calendar for the club, I have to know, well, out of my team here, right, we're missing these two guys because they're off ODP this weekend, right? But that's okay. It means these two guys get to come off the substitutes bench and into the starting lineup, right? That's actually good for us as a club, because I'm developing the depth within my team, the depth within my club. And when these two guys come back from ODP, they'll have an impact on these other players. Okay, that are breathing down their necks and hopefully pull the whole thing up a little bit. But it's a planning for that. Again, for my teenage players that are involved in high school soccer, where does that fit into my calendar? And one of the things that we want our coaches to do, sorry Jeff, I know I keep moving on you, right? One of the things that we want our coaches to do is a little bit more, for the sake of the kids, a little bit more communication and cooperation between high school coaches and club coaches, so that we don't beat up the same best players, because it's those best players that we're dealing with, that we're arguing over sometimes. And those are the ones that are getting beat up the most, physically beat up the most, because they're being asked by those two coaches, the club coach and the high school coach, to play all the time for those two teams. Okay? And we just have to consider what's impacting the kid. So as a club, since I have them more for a longer period of the year than the school coach does, when are they playing school soccer? Okay? I'm going to give them that time. Just go play high school soccer. Okay? When they come back, I'm going to give you a week off. Right? To recuperate, catch up on your studies, have a social life, and then we'll get back into the swing. You have to figure, well, how does that fit into my schedule? Can those types of things fit into my calendar for the club and for those players? In some parts of the country, indoor soccer. Right? That might be during the winter. Right? It might be if you're in South Texas in the summer, right? And it's 105. Right? It might be during the summer that you're playing indoor, air conditioned. Right? So where does that fit in? And when it does fit in, here's one of the things that we're advocating from USU Soccer. Futsal is my first choice, as opposed to banging it off the boards. Right? As terms of the transference to the outdoor game, the skill transference to the outdoor game. So if I can choose, when I have to go inside to play a futsal version, as opposed to an off-the-walls version, fine. If I'm in an environment that the walls are there, they got lines, say, hey, if it hits the wall, it's out of bounds, it's a kick-in, it's a throw-in type of a thing. It doesn't have to be the old bang it off the wall routine. And then for the players and the coaches, schedule time off. Now this is not just the off-season. This is schedule time off during the season for players and coaches to go for a little while and recharge their batteries and come back reinvigorated and anxious to play again. I have a friend of mine who coaches at a large club. I used to be the technical director for Louisiana Soccer. He's at a large club in Baton Rouge, about 3,000 players in the club, and he's in the competitive division, and he schedules during the season 1 weekend per month off. So that, hey, family, go spend some time as a family doing something other than soccer this weekend. Right? Go fishing, go to a movie, go bowling, go to the beach, go whatever. Okay? Oh, by the way, I'm going to do the same thing with my family that I don't see the other 3 weeks of the month. Okay? So that type of a thing as a part of it. Okay? And we don't lose, people are afraid to do that because they feel like, oh, we'll lose traction. Well, no, the other teams, the other clubs aren't taking that time off and they'll get ahead of us. And all they'll do is get themselves burned out and stale. Because you get into a rut, you get into a routine if you're doing it all the time. And for our kids, it becomes a grind. And all of a sudden, soccer becomes a job rather than a youthful experience, right? So you give them a little bit of time off, they'll actually come back better, from that. So what are the issues with competitive soccer? Well, those kids that we just talked about that are playing high school and club, our kids are playing 100 plus matches per year. It's way too many matches and not enough training sessions. The most competitive kids. And those competitive kids, the most talented players, are the ones that are also being asked to play the most minutes in those 100 plus matches. They're the ones who get the least time off, and they're the ones who end up with chronic injuries. And something we have to be careful of. All right? So this is just talking about those minutes, and as a consequence, they're undertrained. They actually don't know how to train, even though they're very talented players. They actually don't know how to train because they're playing too many matches. And so when they get time off by coaches, if they've got an injury, time off during the training session, as opposed to time off during the match. So they're under-trained and actually get to a stage where they don't know how to train, when all of a sudden they go off to be a college player, maybe even a pro player, things along those lines. So, we talked about the scheme foundations, the matches. What are they? Friendlies, if I have them, where do I put them in? Why am I putting them in there? Who are we playing? How does it fit into my rhythm of my seasonal plan? Regulation matches, league matches, where do those fit in? So as I'm putting together my calendar, I'm going from the last day of the season back to the first day. The first thing I plug in is, where are all these matches, starting with the ones that I have to play? Well, if I'm in a league, I probably have a schedule handed to me. I have to play those matches. I plug those in. Right? After that, I plug in some of these others that maybe I have some control over, and then I plug in some tournaments, okay, as to where those fit in. And when I plug in a tournament, I have to ask a few good questions. One, where does it fit into the rhythm of the season? Because if I have it on top, I don't want to play a tournament this weekend if on Wednesday night I have a league match. We won't be recuperated enough to give our best in the league match. So I have to think about those types of things. Okay? I have to think about, who am I playing in a tournament? Where am I playing? Why am I there? So I'm going to a tournament, perhaps, with a team in order to get a particular level of competition. For some teams it might be, I'm saying, I need to go to a tournament where I know I'm probably going to be one of the best because this team lacks confidence. They're better than they think they are. They need a confidence boost. I need to go in where the odds are pretty good. I'm going to win some matches. Right? Then some other teams, pretty good, maybe cocky. Oh, I need to take, this team needs to come down a peg. Okay? This team needs that experience of going and getting themselves up against some much better competition, okay? And get a reality check. Because we're the big fish in our pond, okay? But there's always a bigger pond. Somewhere there's always a bigger pond. Okay? And I've got to go and get experience, with that. Might be the reason I'm going. It might be that I'm going someplace in order to experience a different style of play. I'm going to go to a different part of the country where the style of play might be a little bit different than what I'm getting regularly in my neck of the woods, in my region of the country. Okay? So a lot of different reasons, soccer reasons, that I'm picking which tournament do I go to and all of that. Right? So this is the tournament experiences. Who am I in? Where? How far away am I willing to travel? And the expense and the time involved in all of that. When in the calendar is it occurring? And why? The soccer reason. How is it impacting the development of that team? What's the exposure doing for them? Okay? As a team, as a group of players. So, here's our recommended. We talked about needing more training sessions and matches. Here's our ratio through our traditional soccer groups that you see on the far left of the screen. Then the frequency of training per week, the duration of those training sessions, and then here's our recommended ratio. This is ideal. You're not always going to get there. Okay? It's going to be hard with a lot unless you're dealing with the most committed under-19 team to get them to do 5 training sessions a week or 5 training sessions every match that you play. It doesn't have to fit into a weekly type of a thing. It could be a 10-day rotation. So this is the ideal, but we always need to be striving towards that ideal. The things that you see in the U.S. Soccer Best Practices document, those are ideals. You're not going to get there 100%. You're always striving towards getting there and doing that from under 6 through under 19 and accomplishing all of those things that are in that document. Impacting all of this, as we talked about, one of the other groups are the parents' participation. They support the child socially, the team socially. They're the support system for the child. The player is the social support system, is the family and friends.